Welcome to Painted Kids Studio, where we make amazing art videos. Hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you can be notified every time we post a new art video. Hello friends, Miss Kate here with my very favorite painting. So many of you that paint with me here at the studio and at school know that my very favorite painting is Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. So I'm going to teach you guys today how to draw your own version of Van Gogh's Starry Night. So before we get started, I know a few of you might have some canvases from me in some of our art kits that include some characters and some special things. So if you have our Star Wars Starry Night, you'll have a little BB-8 on your canvas and you can draw Starry Night behind BB-8. Some of you guys might have our Starry Night at Hogwarts. So if you're a Harry Potter fan, I drew Hogwarts in the background of a canvas for some of my art friends. And you can draw Starry Night in the background of your canvas, but instead of putting grass here, you're gonna put water. So Hogwarts is gonna have some water around it. Some of you guys might even have an Eiffel Tower traced on your canvas. So if you have an Eiffel Tower traced on your canvas, and I know I already have a YouTube video currently, I think it just released a couple days ago. It's called Starry Night in Paris. So you could have the Eiffel Tower, you could put Starry Night behind it. I can't tell you how many paintings I have done at the studio with Starry Night in the background. So really, Starry Night is such a beautiful painting that you could put it behind anything. So you don't have to do it exactly like Van Gogh did with the cypress tree and the little town in the mountains. You really could put this sky in the background of anything that you want to do. So let's get started. So today I'm painting on canvas. A lot of these YouTube videos I am drawing on paper, but with Starry Night, I feel like I really want to paint it on canvas. So in Van Gogh's Starry Night, the star of the show is this big, tall, creepy tree, and I think it's called a cypress tree, and to me, it's like, and I'm working with Sharpie. You guys can start with pencil and eraser just in case you make a mistake. But a cypress tree, it almost looks like really tall, spindly fingers, or like maybe even like flames or fire or something. It's like this tall, pointy, scary kind of like tree, like this. So if you look at Van Gogh's actual painting, The Starry Night, it has this big black thing, and a lot of people will look at it and go, I don't even know what that is. It doesn't look like a tree. But he called these cypress trees. I don't even know what a cypress tree is. I don't know if I've ever seen a tree like this, but that's what this is called. So after you have the cypress tree, you guys can go ahead and start putting in the Starry Night background. So the Starry Night background, you start with grass, like that. And it could be a little lower on your canvas, it could be a little higher, it doesn't matter where you put your grass line, but you're gonna have like a line for the grass. And then I like to put some mountains in here, and you can do mountains all the way across, or sometimes what I'll do is I'll start them just on one side of the painting, like this. Okay, so we have mountains in the distance. So once you have your mountains in the distance, we are ready for our Starry Night sky. So one big element of Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night is the moon. So I like the moon to have a little circle around it. So I'm gonna start in the corner of my painting. I'm gonna draw a big circle just like that. After you have this circle is going to hold the moon. So I need to start with the letter C in the middle of the circle, like that. And then we're gonna put a smaller C inside. So it turns that C into a crescent moon. After we have the moon on here, we're gonna do that swirly whirly wind. If you look at Van Gogh's painting, you'll see in the Starry Night, he has this like swirl of light blue, like whooshing through the sky. So I'm gonna show you guys the best way to do that swirly whirly wind. So I start with my pencil or Sharpie, whatever you're working with, on the side of my canvas, and I go like this. I go up, and I go down, and I almost touch the moon, but I turn back around. So I go up, I go down, I almost touch the moon, but I turn back around. That's how I like to do start my swirl in my Van Gogh sky. So after you have this first swirl, we need to give this a thickness. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my pencil or my Sharpie here at the end of our swirl, and I'm gonna retrace my steps like this. And I'm gonna bring it all the way back down to the edge of the canvas. So now I have this wind that is blowing through my sky. After you have your swirly whirly wind blowing through your sky, you can go ahead and start adding stars. Now, the stars in Vincent van Gogh's painting look like they're glowing. So not only are these like little dots, so that's what the stars look like, but they have this glow around them. So to me, I always call these donuts. I think they look like donuts, but in Van Gogh's painting, they're just glowing stars. So I'm gonna start throwing in these donuts, and they don't all have to be the same size. And I'm gonna put them above the swirl and below the swirl, but I don't want them to be in the swirl, and I don't want them to be anywhere on the ground or the tree. So I'm just gonna start filling in the sky with these stars. And you can put in as many as you want. So I'm going a little crazy here, I got a lot. And the more you have, the longer it'll probably take you to paint this, because you have to paint around all of these, which is fine. All right, so I've got my sky filled in with stars. I've got all my stars scattered in the sky. And then you guys can choose what you want to put down here. So some of you that have received pre-traced canvases from me, you already have BB-8 like traced over here. Some of you have Hogwarts already in the distance. If you have Hogwarts, you don't even really need this cypress tree. Hogwarts is enough. You can just ignore this and start with the grass and the water, or I guess just the water. But if you guys want to really recreate Van Gogh's Starry Night, he had a little town down here. So I simplify it. He actually has a lot of buildings, like it's like a whole town down here. And I'm not going to go that far into detail. So what I usually like to do is I like to draw some like little buildings. So I might have like a little house like this with some windows and a door. And you can make them look 3D if you want. So like this, maybe with some windows up and down like that. Another thing that Van Gogh had is he had like a church. So it kind of looked like, it was like I think it's like this shape. And then maybe like a roof, and then there was like a steeple. Something like that. So he had like a church in his painting. So I might do that same thing. And then again, you guys can put little windows in here, whatever you want. And you don't really even have to have buildings. It could be anything you want. So, I mean, I've done so many versions of Starry Night. So I might even have like a building behind here, like this. And again, I'm just kind of like filling in here and there. I'm just putting in some little houses. But you guys can put in anything you want. So I've done Starry Night behind pictures of dogs, pictures of polar bears, pictures of penguins. I've done this background behind many things. So really, this background you can put behind anything. So whenever you have something down here in this grass, if you want it to be a town, if you want it to be an animal, whatever you want, once you have this part done, then we are done with our sketch and we're gonna be ready for paint. So whenever I am painting a canvas, I always have the 3 primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. And I also have white and black so I can make my colors lighter and darker. I like to have a couple different brushes. So today I'm working with a big flat brush. So I always recommend you have this. So this is like the brush that I would use for really big areas of the sky or even the grass, really big areas. You want to have a brush like this so you can color, you can paint very quickly big areas. And then I have a couple smaller brushes. So I have a small flat brush today, and I also have like a pointed brush for little details. So today I'm actually gonna start with my medium brush, and the first thing I'm gonna paint in my Van Gogh painting is I'm gonna paint the stars. So I'm gonna take some of my yellow paint, and I'm gonna paint like the outside of the stars here, just like this. The insides I'm gonna make them orange. So I'm not gonna paint the inside of these donut shapes. I am just going to paint the outer edge here, like the outside of the circle. Just like this. So you're gonna fill in all these little donuts. Not the donut holes though, not the middles. And then don't forget your moon is actually like a star too. So it's gonna have this same yellow painted around. Just like this. So I only have a couple more to go. I'm actually moving pretty quick for as many stars as I had. But you guys take your time. There's no rush. You don't need to rush art. Take your time. That way you don't make any mistakes. Okay, so I'm almost done. I got one more left right here. One more star. Okay, I'm set. So I'm gonna take my brush that I've been using, I'm gonna wipe it off with a paper towel. If you guys wanna like wash it off rinse it off in a water cup, that's fine too. Just make sure you dry your brushes after you clean them off because we don't want any water getting into our acrylic paint, because if our paint is watery, it's not gonna stick to the canvas very well. So after I have my yellow stars done, I'm gonna go ahead and move to the inside of the stars. So my inside of my stars are really small, so I need a small pointy brush. So if you have a small pointy brush, you need to grab this one. So I'm gonna make some orange for the middle of my stars, the middle of my moon, and the way I make orange is I take some yellow, like this, and then I take just a little bit of red. It doesn't really take very much red to turn yellow into orange because red is such a bright color. So it's a lot of yellow and a little bit of red, and then I have this beautiful kind of like pumpkin color. So all I have to do is I'm just gonna dot this, and the middle of my stars are so small, it's literally just like a little polka dot of paint. That's all I need to fill in these stars. So I've got polka dot, and a little polka dot, and a little polka dot, and then I gotta do my moon. My banana moon, my crescent moon. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill that in. So while these stars and the moon are drying, I'm actually gonna move on to my grass. So I'm gonna take my brush again. I'm gonna wipe it off with my paper towel. Again, if you want to wash off your brush, that's fine. Just make sure you dry it off too. My grass is really big, so I feel like with my grass, I could probably use my big flat brush. So now if you have really complicated things going on in here, you may not want to use your big brush, but for me, I have a lot of empty space in my grass, so I feel like this is a good choice for me. So to make the grass, it's just yellow and blue. So green is yellow and blue. So this makes like a green crayon. So it's like a medium green. If you want it to be a little darker green, you can either add more blue to make it more of a blue green, or I'm gonna tell you guys a little bit, a little trick to make this not so bright. It's still dark, but not so bright. So the opposite of green on the color wheel is red. So some of you that have done my color mixing lesson on YouTube, you already know this. So whatever is opposite of a color on the color wheel, that will make it more neutral, more brown. So I've got this green, I think it's too bright. So what I wanna do is I'm gonna take a little bit of red, which is green's complementary color, it's across from it on the color wheel, And it doesn't take very much. I just have a little bit of red on my brush, and it's gonna start just turning it a little bit darker, a little bit more neutral. So you can see it's just darkening it up a little bit, just making it not quite as bright as it was. So it's still green. It's just like a darker green, like almost like a Christmas tree green. So whenever I get my green the way that I want it, which I wanted this darker green because it's nighttime. I want my grass to not be too light. I want it to be kind of dark. I'm gonna go ahead and start painting my grass. And it's okay if you get a little bit on your cypress tree. The cypress tree is gonna be black. So if I get some on my cypress tree, that is no big deal. No big deal, because black goes over everything. So I'm gonna go ahead and start filling in, and I can't forget this teeny little spot here that's peeking, this little bit of grass that's peeking behind the cypress tree. And I'm gonna keep filling in as I go. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we're about halfway done. Okay, I'm gonna try, now, you know what, if I wasn't working so fast, I would probably switch to a smaller brush to go around these houses, but I don't want this video to take forever for you guys, so I'm working really fast, and I probably should switch to a smaller brush, but I'm gonna attempt it with a bigger brush. But guys, in general, when you guys have a big area to paint, it's fine to use your big brush, but when you guys have little details, don't try to do little teeny details with your big brush. You need to switch to a smaller brush. That's why I always give my friends that paint with me at the studio an assortment of brushes. Some are big, some are small. So that no matter what we're painting, we have the right brush to do the job without making a mistake. And I'm actually starting to run out of my paint color. I don't know if I'm having enough. I might have to make just a little bit more. And then I added a little bit of red. All right. I think I've got it pretty close. All right, that's close enough. So again, guys, if you have little details here like I do with my church and with my houses, don't use your big brush. Switch to one of your little brushes. Now over here doesn't matter because I don't have anything I'm next to. I can work with my big brush just fine. But when you get close to little details, it's always nice to switch to a smaller brush. Better safe than sorry, so you don't have to fix a mistake. All right, so I've got my grass in there, just like that. And then again, I'm gonna wipe off my brush on my paper towel. So now my stars are probably dry. They're probably, I mean, maybe not all the way dry, but it's been a little while since I painted these. So they're probably drying, mostly dry. So I'm gonna go ahead and start putting in the dark blue of the sky. So for my dark blue, I'm gonna give you a couple options. You can either take, and again, I'm working with my big yellow brush. You guys can switch to a smaller brush if you want. So this is what primary blue looks like, and I love it. It's beautiful. It's like a nice, bright but dark blue, like this. And you guys are welcome to use this color if you want. But if you think that this is not quite dark enough for what you were thinking Starry Night would be, I'm gonna show you a way to make blue a little darker. So if you wanna make your blue just a little bit darker, all you have to do is take some blue and add just a little touch of red. Now if you put too much red in it, it's gonna turn purple, but if you put just a little bit of blue in it, or a little bit of red in your blue, it's gonna turn it into a color I call indigo. It's kind of like a navy blue, like a midnight blue. So it's not purple. This is not purple. It's just a very dark blue. So it kind of looks like this, and you can tell that it is darker than this blue that I was working with earlier. So it depends on what you want your Starry Night painting to look like. So if you'd rather use just the plain old primary blue, that's fine if you're painting. It's up to you. If you'd like to make your blue a little darker, all you have to do is add a little bit of red. Now, if you add too much red, your blue sky is gonna turn purple, and we don't want a purple sky. That's not gonna look like Vincent van Gogh's painting. So just make sure that if you add red into your blue, that you just add a little bit. All right, friends, so I am finishing up the last bit of my Starry Night sky here. I've got, or at least the dark blue part of it. So there's a couple places where I've hit my stars a little bit, and there's a couple places where I hit my swirl a little bit. That is fine. Don't worry about that little stuff. If you are nervous working with your big brush, I've been working with my big brush for this whole blue sky. Just switch to one of your smaller brushes when you get close to your stars if it's making you nervous. So it might be a little easier to trace around these little things with a smaller brush than this one. So after you are done, you don't even really need to wipe off your brush, because I'm gonna add this dark blue into my swirl color. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some white, because the swirl in Van Gogh's painting is a little bit lighter blue. So I'm gonna take some white, and I'm gonna take some of my blue, and I'm gonna mix it in to my white. So now I have this like beautiful, I might even take a little bit more. So I have this beautiful light blue color. And I'm gonna use this light blue to paint. Well, some of you guys might be coloring. This is a beautiful drawing to do on paper with colored pencil too. So you guys do not have to paint this. You guys could do this with colored pencil on paper too. Van Gogh's Starry Night is beautiful in whatever medium you want to do it, because I've even done it with watercolor and oil pastel, and it's beautiful. Any way you do this painting, it is a masterpiece. So I'm going to go ahead and paint this swirl light blue. I'm running out. I think I'm going to have to make some more. I'm not going to have enough. Okay. All right, and again, I'm kind of working fast. You guys work slow and careful. And I'm gonna take this light blue all the way to the end of the swirl. And some of you guys may want to switch to a smaller brush when you get to the end of the swirl here, because I realize this is very small, so like the end of this swirl is like really thin. I'm gonna go ahead and do it with my big brush, but you guys might wanna do it with your smaller brush just so you get it exactly perfect. And with me, I'm working fast, so it's okay if mine's not exactly right. Okay, so I'm almost done with my swirl. There we go. So when you get your swirl done, we're gonna go ahead and wipe off our brush on our paper towel. And then I'm gonna paint my details here. So I have a little village. Some of you guys might have a BB-8, or you might have Hogwarts. Again, I'm gonna show those couple paintings just because I know in some of my art kits, some of you guys have these traced onto your canvases. So if you have one of my BB-8 paintings, BB-8 is pretty much all white with a little bit of orange. His circles are orange. And then I just had some little gray details, and I do have this one little blue detail, but you can just put little brush strokes on here to make it look like buttons or something. So that's what BB-8 looks like. And when you're painting BB-8, I would use your smallest brush just because you have to get in and out of all these little details in here. For those of you that might have my Harry Potter pack and might be doing Hogwarts, this is how I painted Hogwarts. So basically, the buildings, the walls of the buildings are all a shade of medium or light gray, and I kind of changed it up a little bit. And then I have the roofs, the roof lines, those are all a dark gray. So I've got like some really dark gray and even black on some of the roofs. And then the windows are either like lit up with yellow, or some of the windows in Hogwarts are black, which means like someone who's sleeping in this room, they might already be asleep. So they're like, the light is out, but some of the lights are on. So it's up to you how you wanna paint this. All right, back to Starry Night. So Once you have your swirl done, we are ready to do our details. So some of you guys might be painting hogwarts, or some of you might be painting BB-8. But I am painting these little houses. And when you have little details like this, they can be any colors that you want. So I might have like, I don't know, maybe like an orange house. I don't know if I've ever seen an orange house. But I think it's gonna be really pretty against the green. So I'm doing an orange house. All right, and I'm using my teeny tiny little wooden brush here that comes to a point. And again, I'm working pretty fast. And then I can decide maybe the roof. You know what, I'm gonna do the roofs later. Okay, so maybe this house, I might have it be like a creamy color. So a creamy color, I would just have like white, and maybe a little orange, or even like a little yellow. Just make it like kind of a creamy color. So I'm gonna have this house be kind of a creamy color. And I gotta figure out a color for my church. I think maybe I'll have it be like a shade of green. So I might have like white and green and maybe even a little yellow together. That's kind of nice. So it's like a light green, like a minty green color. And I'm just gonna paint this. And again, any details that you've added into your Starry Night, you can make these any color you want. The cypress tree is always black, but if you have anything else in your painting, because I've even done this with like a horse running through it. So like there's like a silhouette of a horse. So I mean, really this could be, you can paint this any way that you want. All right, so once I have like the walls of my houses, I'm gonna go ahead and do a dark gray for the roofs. So gray is just black and white. And I might make like parts of the roof gray and parts of them black maybe. So maybe on this one, I'll do like gray here. And maybe I'll do gray on this thing. But again, it's like kind of however you want. Oh, one thing I didn't mention is if you guys want the lights on in some of your windows, you can just put a little yellow. So it looks like people in the house are awake. So maybe there's like lights on. And maybe in the church, they're not awake. Maybe the lights are off, like everyone's already left the church. So I just put like black in the windows, like this. And I might make my doors black, maybe like this. Some of the walls or the windows here might be black. And then maybe some of the roofs will be black. And again, I'm working with my little brush. I have a little more control with my little brush. Especially painting these teeny little areas like this. It's so much easier to do with a little brush than it is to do with one of your big brushes. So when you're doing the little details, you always gotta switch to your little brush. Whichever is the littlest brush you've got, that's what you're gonna wanna be using for this part. Okay. And again, it's not perfect, that's fine. So here's my little town. And the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and paint my mountains and my cypress tree. Now you guys can decide which brush you wanna use. I feel like my mountains are big enough that I can probably do it with my big brush. You guys may not wanna do this with your big brush. You might wanna switch to a smaller brush just so you can be a little more careful. But again, I'm working really fast on this one. So I'm gonna use my big brush. You guys can take your time and use one of your smaller brushes, but we're gonna go ahead and paint the mountains of our Starry Night painting with a black paint. Now, sometimes I'll do those with a really dark gray, but usually when I'm doing Starry Night, I do black for the mountains. So I'm just gonna kind of like fill in. They're already Sharpied, so I can already see where they are. I just have to fill them in. So it's really not that hard. Okay, so I've got my black mountains filled in. The other thing that you can fill in with black if you want is you can fill in your cypress tree. And again, this is like if you want to use a tiny little brush, You might want to do that, especially getting up into these little tips of the tree like this. It's a little tricky to do with a bigger brush like what I'm using. So I'm okay doing it. I'm going maybe a little outside my lines, but it's still staying pretty close to what I drew. All right, so I've got most of my cypress tree done. I just need to get up into these little arms here, these little branches. Okay, one more. No, I guess I have one more after this, because I got this little one down here. So I go into this guy. All right, this is my last one. So I just gotta fill in. Okay, there, so I got my cypress tree done. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this brush aside, and now this next part is where we turn it into a real Van Gogh. So Van Gogh was an impressionist, so he added all these brush strokes, and the whole sky looked like it was glowing and swirling and whirling, and it was like you could see the glow, you could see the movement, you could see the twinkling of the stars because of the way he painted. So I'm gonna take my smallest brush, and I'm gonna make sure it's cleaned off pretty well, because I know I was using it before with another color, so I'll make sure it's pretty clean. All right, so the next color I'm gonna make is a color I called buttered popcorn. So buttered popcorn is just light yellow. So I take some white, and I take some yellow, and I mix those two colors together, and it makes a color I called buttered popcorn. This is the perfect color to make your stars glow in your sky. So once you have this buttered popcorn color, you're gonna put these little dots and dashes swirling around all of your stars. Okay, so I've got, there's some, and so I'm gonna hit every single one of my stars. Now make sure you don't get it into this black, because then it's gonna smear and make a big mess. And I just did that black, I just did the mountain, so I don't wanna smear it. I just finished it. So I'm gonna take this buttered popcorn color, and I'm just gonna make my stars glow, and you can make your moon glow just by like swirling. And I'm not gonna put it in my swirl yet, because I feel like the swirl is kind of blowing in front of all the stars. That's why there's no stars in it. So I'm not gonna put this buttered popcorn like over the top of my swirl. Now I'll add some to my swirl, but I'm not gonna put it over the top. And again, when you're next to your tree too, you've got to be super careful. We don't want to get this on our cypress tree either. So I'm going to just like fill in, a little more. I'm going to fill in here. And I'm going kind of fast, but actually, you know what? It's probably kind of nice when you go fast. As long as you don't bump into your like cypress tree or your mountains. You want this to be kind of loose, because that's how Van Gogh kind of painted. It's like these brush strokes. See, these big, thick brush strokes of paint. So I feel like if you stress out too much and you make it like too perfect, it doesn't really look like a Van Gogh. You need to be like kind of loose like this. All right, so all of my stars are glowing now. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make my wind look like it's moving. So to make my wind look like it's moving, I'm gonna take a little more buttered popcorn, and I'm gonna start adding some little dashes into my wind. And again, you gotta be careful that you do not touch your cypress tree or your mountains, because those are already black. So I don't wanna touch those. Okay, so I'm just like adding these like dashes of this buttered popcorn color to my swirl here and there. And look at how loose I am. I'm super loose. Like I'm not really stressing out too much about it. I'm just like brushing these, like these strokes in. So after you have that, if you want to, another thing I like to do is sometimes I'll take some dark blue, and I'll also put that into my swirl a little bit, just to kind of like blend the colors together. So sometimes I'll just take a little bit of a dark blue and kind of work into my swirl where I don't already have some blue or some buttered popcorn. I might just work into that a little bit like this. And then at this point, it's looking like a Van Gogh. Now you can go as crazy as you want. Sometimes with this, I'll even like take a little bit of white and I'll add even extra little dashes and swirls. Another thing, so like, see, like the white will just make it glow a little bit more. If you want to do that, you can. Another thing that's sometimes kind of fun is I'll take a little bit of white on my brush and I'll add like little highlights to the mountains. Like they're glowing a little bit, like this. Okay, so it's not like a whole lot, but just like the mountains are kind of shining a little bit in the moonlight. And you can do the same thing to your tree. So if you wanted to, you can like add like a little bit of like highlight to your tree. Like your cypress tree is just kind of like glowing a little bit in the moonlight. You can do that too. Or even your grass. You can put like a little highlight on your grass. There's a little, and this could be like butter popcorn too if you wanted it to be. It doesn't have to be white. So there's a lot of little extra details. Another thing you can do if you want is you can use, this is one of my favorite tricks, to put far away stars in the sky. You could use the wrong end of your brush, so like the handle end of your brush, and you could dip it in white paint and you can put like teeny little stars far away in the distance. So if you wanted to add that little detail, you could. So this is where you guys get to kind of customize the painting and make it yours. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is my very favorite painting. So I am glad that you were able to paint with me my favorite Starry Night by Van Gogh, and I will continue posting art lessons every day until we go back to school at 1 p.m. and I am starting to add some extra lessons at 6 p.m. for my friends that want to paint with me instead of draw, and also some extra projects that some of my students have with my art kits. So if you can join me again tomorrow, I would love to see you.